Nomu, in Japanese meaning brainless, and for the larger part of the My Hero Academia story, this was undeniable. The Nomu were brainless despite the irony of the brains we often see protruding from their eerie figures. As the story developed, the name Nomu would come to be more than flawed. In fact, it would lose all accuracy, something the Hero Society and us the readers were unprepared for. Originally mysterious man-made creatures, they would later be more accurately coined as a king's soldiers. In this video, we'll be going over all known aspects of the Nomu experiment. Some facts and events have yet to be revealed in the anime, making them manga spoilers. With that said, before we get started, I'd just like to say, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to drop a like to support the channel, and subscribe to never miss an upload from Plot Armor. Let's get into it. The first appearance of the Nomu was during the USJ arc, where we would be introduced to Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and at the time our biggest threat yet, Nomu. Designed to go toe-to-toe with All Might, Nomu had everyone holding their breath as he took on the then #1 hero. This fight was at the time the biggest moment in this series. I couldn't tell you how many edits I've seen over the years of that vicious barrage All Might poured his soul into. Even now that we've had stunning fights like Deku vs Overhaul, watching that scene is still an exhilarating experience. We didn't know it at the time, but there were more layers to this fight than we initially thought. One thing we did walk away from this arc with was a start to understanding what Nomu are though. Granted, we didn't know there was an army of them lying in wait until later. The police and All Might's longtime friend Detective Tsukauchi would provide us with our first real pieces of the puzzle. The USJ Nomu would through DNA testing be revealed to be formerly a small-time thug whose body was modified to handle multiple quirks. Possessing multiple quirks is abnormal, and so they were easily able to suspect the underworld boss, All For One, was in some way involved with this incident, and strange mute creature. From here, things would only get stranger, and the potential threat brewing in the shadows became more apparent. During the Hosu incident, Shigaraki was given 3 more Nomu to satisfy his desire to cause chaos in Hosu. Strangely though, All For One said they had 6 fully operational ones, and none on the level of the one they used at USJ. This to me is strange because to go from only having 6 and none at even the level of the USJ Nomu, to having a high-end Nomu and several others in development, and a swarm of lower-tier Nomu, is suspicious. The only way it would make sense is if they were quickly becoming more efficient at producing these creatures, but let's not skip too much ahead because outside of the anime, shortly after the Hosu incident, Horikoshi would hint at Deku and Bakugo's childhood friend Tsubasa being the winged Nomu. A strange decision to reveal something so huge outside of the story, but we love reveals, so I'll take it. This was a shocking reveal, but it added more questions than it answered. It fueled more theories that Deku's quirk was stolen, it made us wonder if Nomu were created using children's quirks, and it made us more curious than ever about where did Tsubasa go, because as their childhood friends got older, he at some point disappeared. And on top of all that, again outside the manga, later Tsubasa was revealed to be the grandson of the mastermind behind the Nomu experiment. I don't believe that the winged Nomu was created using Tsubasa's body though. All Nomu human origins that have been revealed to us were previously villains. The only way then for it to make sense that Tsubasa was made into a Nomu is if he were the first Nomu, used as some sort of sick test. But this is less likely than the other possibility, which is that Tsubasa had his quirk cloned by the doctor. Quirk cloning is something we only somewhat recently learned was possible, and is something the doctor has spent a large portion of his life practicing. This is what I believe was done with Tsubasa's quirk. However, as for his disappearance, that is a whole other discussion in itself. This winged Nomu would do more for the story though, by grabbing Deku and attempting to fly away. It acted without command. Slight foreshadowing for some later events that we'll get into later in the video. Moving on from Hosu, we would continue to see Nomu, but nothing too notable happened until we reached the Pro Hero Billboard Awards arc. And things would take a drastic turn because at this point we would meet the high-end Nomu, Hood. This was some of my favorite content in the series, and this is where the name Nomu started to lose its meaning because Hood was anything but brainless. His combat skills and thinking ability was maddening to see, going as far as to push the #1 hero Endeavor beyond his limits. While I had the chance to mention it, that voice in the anime was comedy gold. I didn't expect anything like that, and it's not to say it was bad, it was just completely unexpected. Hood did unfortunately get cooked, literally by Endeavor in this fight, and that would be our only chance to see a high-end Nomu at peak strength. We later learned that it took Hood 10 hours to stabilize once activated, time that the other high-end Nomus weren't fortunate enough to have. And yes, I say other high-end Nomu because we were introduced to more high-end Nomu. First given a tease when the League of Villains first properly met All Might's right-hand man, Daruma Ojiko, whose real name was later revealed to be Kyodai Garaki. Man, looking back, the hype was real when we got this tease. The speculation was insane, but in the end, everyone was wrong. These high-end Nomu were revealed to be created using battle-crazed villains, a less exciting reveal than we all had hoped, and unfortunately a less exciting fight than we expected due to them not being given 10 hours to stabilize. I understand why they had to go out so bad. If they were at their peak, they would body anyone in their way. You see what Hood did to the #1 hero, you see what that man did. And I suppose what better time than now to get into the fact that the Nomu were modeled after Gigantomachia, a calamity that lives and dies for his master's sake. Because in the words of Dr. Ujiko, every king needs foot soldiers, good, strong ones. The reveal of this was exciting, but at the same time it felt like one of those, oh duh, how did I not know that? But it makes perfect sense. Anything close to an army of Gigantomachia would devastate its opposition. And now that I think about it, a small army of Gigantomachia versus a large army of Twice sounds very interesting. But carrying on, with the high-end Nomu completely defeated, we're now left with the near high-end Nomu, which are very powerful Nomu that are unable to think for themselves and haven't made it to the testing phase. These Nomu seem like the final wave of Nomu that we'll be seeing for the rest of the series, or at least for a very long time, and it's not looking too exciting. And assuming these near high-end Nomu are defeated, the only Nomu remaining would be Kurogiri and basically Shigaraki. Two Nomu that I would call perfected, a level above high-end. Kurogiri was created using the body of former UA student Shirakumo after he passed in a villain attack, unfortunately. Something you can learn all about from our video covering Eraserhead's life. It's a tragic story, and if I do say so myself, we did a great job retelling the story, so be sure to check that out if you haven't seen it already. Right now, Kurogiri is in prison, and it's unclear what's going to become of him. A lot of people speculate Eri will be able to turn him back to Shirakumo using Rewind, but time will tell. As for Shigaraki, he's not exactly a Nomu, because he's not limited to following commands, but the way his body was modified, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to call him one. We've covered a lot of Nomu at this point, but we can't forget Johnny and Mocha, Dr. Ujiko's personal little Nomu. Now, it's not clear what these two Nomu are exactly, or I guess were, since they're dead now. But Johnny had a warping quirk that we got to see in action a couple times before he died a rough death. Now as for Mocha, this one died an honorable death and was the Nomu to do what I referred to earlier, act on its own. While Nomu have to follow orders generally, this one sacrificed itself to protect Ujiko from Mirko on its own. And I know they're bad guys, but man, that scene and their whole relationship touched my little Grinch heart, I won't lie. On top of this noble sacrifice, Mocha had twice his double quirk, which is just insane. The villains had two people capable of using that beastly quirk. Sounds pretty broken to me. Explains why they both had to die. Now I suppose the final aspect of the Nomu that we can discuss is how they were put together. The bodies were probably acquired in a variety of ways, whether that was from a villain All For One took out himself, or a body from a morgue like Shirakumo. From there, Ujiko would begin body modifications that likely took anywhere between a few weeks and a couple months, depending on how drastic the changes were. This is based on how long Shigaraki's procedures were. I'd assume they were shorter than his due to it being a less delicate process. From there, the quirks would be planted on them, either through All For One or the cloned quirks. All For One made the process more simple, but as you all know, he's been in Tartarus for a while, and so the process had to, at least for a while now, be done by Ujiko alone. From there, the Nomu would be complete, and the only thing left would be testing hours, stabilizing time, and lastly the fact that they're turned on with an electrical current. With that said, we've covered all known aspects of the Nomu. I hope you enjoyed the video. To me, the end of the Nomu has been pretty disappointing because we weren't able to see their full potential, but what do you think? Let us know in the comments. Please remember to drop a like and subscribe to Plot Armor if you haven't already. Until next time, I'm KJ, have a great day, goodbye.